What is up, everyone? Today we are bringing you the top 10 new cards for Historic that are coming out of the Wilds of Eldraine set. And these are from the Enchanted Tales part of the new set, the kind of extra page of cards that they added into the set. These ones are just going straight into the older formats, like Legacy, Pioneer, whatever, wherever they're legal originally. But Arena is a little bit special because we have the historic format where every card that's on Arena, unless it gets banned, is part of the historic format. So I've excluded I think it was about 6 or so cards that were pre-banned in historic, and we're going to get into the 10 that I think are good, are worth it, and we'll probably see play in historic. So yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty, yeah, so starting off strong. These are not in any particular order, by the way, just the 10 cards from the Enchanted Tales that I think we'll see play in Historic. So this one, Bitter Blossom, 1 and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and you create a 1/1 fairy, black fairy, rogue creature token with flying. This card has historically been very good. It is a way to just create a bunch of tokens on the battlefield, hard for opponents to deal with. And you do lose life in the process, but you can use these as chump blockers, you can use these as sacrifices. So probably this card could see play in some sort of Rakdos sacrifice deck, or in some sort of auras deck to always give you a target to, equip your auras to, which is one of the main problems of the auras decks. Other than that, it is also an enchantment itself, so it does synergize with the aura or enchantment type decks. So I have no doubt that this card is good. Just yeah, where is it going to see play? So very likely Rakdos type decks or aura type decks. And going to the next one, we got Blind Obedience. This is a card that is less likely to see play, but we have a very similar card in Historic called Meeting of the Councils, I think it is called, where it's a 1 white, just a white source to cast, and opponent's creatures come into the battlefield tapped. This is a little bit different. This is 1 and a white. Artifacts and creatures your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. That card is very good, and in control decks, very strong. This one, however, has an extra ability, Extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black. If you do, the opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. So, it is similar to the Authority of the Councils, and however, it gives you this Extort ability where you can drain the opponent for life. I guess this one is not as likely to see play, but I thought it could be kind of cool in like an Esper control deck or blue-white control deck, where, anytime you're casting a counter spell, anytime you're casting a draw spell, you cast your planeswalkers, etc., you have this ability to gain some life and drain the opponent. So it's kind of like another win con. To be honest, you don't even need planeswalkers if you have this. You get 2 or 3 of these down. You cast a counter spell, and then you drain the opponent for 2 or 3. Sounds pretty good. You eventually will win the game, so you just have to keep countering everybody's spells to win. So, yeah, I think it could be good. Definitely has potential, so that's why I included it. Alright, next one, Forced Fruition. This is a 6-mana spell for blue-blue. Whenever opponent casts a spell, that player draws 7 cards. Obviously, having your opponent draw cards isn't always good, but 7 cards is a lot of cards. They're going to quickly mill out their whole deck with this. And right now, I'm sure anyone who plays Historic is aware, the Orcish Bowmasters is a menace. I mean, Sheoldred also is a menace. So making your opponent draw 7 cards, if you have any of those creatures on the battlefield, is pretty much a death sentence. And yeah, so you'll have the mill win con, or you Bowmaster them 7 times, or you Sheoldred them, ping them 7 times. So it's just got a quick way to kind of wrap up the game. So I could see that a Dimir deck with Sheoldred, Bowmaster, Force Fruition, and maybe even some way to quickly get the enchantment onto the battlefield would be a pretty solid deck in Historic. All right, the next one on our list, Fray Insanity, 2 and a blue, enchantment or a curse, enchant player. At the beginning of their end step, the player mills X cards, where X is the number of cards put into the graveyard from anywhere this turn. There is a mill deck currently in Historic that is quite strong. It's probably sitting around tier 1.5, so not quite top tier, which is a good thing, in my opinion. But this card could make it a little bit better. There's a blue and a black card called Glimpse the Unthinkable, which mills 10 cards. So if you have this down and then you cast that spell, now they're milling 20 cards, which is 1/3 of their deck. There's also Mesmerizing Orb, which mills based on how many permanents untap. So typically people have like 4 or 5 mana lands and they untap it and then they mill 5 cards. So this would double each of those to be 10 cards. So it's a pretty scary card. It's gonna definitely win the game very quickly for the mill deck. Meaning the mill deck will probably win about turn 4, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, I think it'll make mill a little bit scarier, and definitely don't really want to see it played in Historic, but I think there's potential that this will be played in Historic. All right, next one, Greater Auramancy. So this is 1 and a white. It's an enchantment, so it goes well in the enchantment decks, especially green-white enchantments. Other enchantments you control have Shroud, and then enchantment creatures you control have Shroud. So we have something similar that's green and a white that gives everything Shroud. I guess the benefit is that this one can also fit in the green-black deck, which would give, basically your core Spirit Dancer infinite protection, or your SRAM protection. It gives all your other enchantments, maybe that are drawing you cards, protection. I mean, not protection, Shroud. Shroud is even kind of crazier than protection, to be honest. Yeah, to be honest. So, yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to see if this has a place there, but I think potentially the fact that this is just white and not green-white means that it can go to the black-white Auras deck, and therefore might see play in Historic in the black-white Auras deck. So yeah, definitely a strong card. Next one, Hatching Plans. So this is 1 and a blue. When Hatching Plans is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Before this new set, I would have not thought too much about this because don't know good ways to remove enchantments. However, in this new set, there's like a counter spell, there's like some draw cards, there's removal cards, there's a bunch of ways to destroy your own enchantments with the bargain mechanic. So basically, this is almost 2 mana, draw 3 cards anytime you're playing cards with the bargain mechanic. And there's probably a few other ways. I know there's like just a white cost spell in the new set that says destroy target enchantment. If it was your own enchantment, you draw a card, I think is what it says. So potentially you could play this, cast that, and then you're gonna draw 4 cards. So that sounds pretty good to me. I mean, it's a little bit of like a combo thing, but it might be nice to have enchantment removal in your deck that you can main deck and do something useful with. So yeah, I definitely think this has a lot of potential. Drawing 3 cards for 2 mana is very nice. So as long as you have some ways to get rid of the enchantment, then it's going to be quite good. Yeah, I'm sure there's other ways as well. So I think it's good, has a lot of potential. So that's why it's on my list. Next one, Intruder Alarm. A lot of blue for Historic, it seems like, which is change of pace. Blue has been kind of shafted a lot recently by Wizards, so nice to see. But Intruder Alarm, 2 and a blue. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap step, and then whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. So probably people are kind of familiar of this card from Commander. However, this is also just a really big combo card. So if you have some decks that has to do with activated abilities, there's a few of the like green. I'm trying to think of there's like a few infinite combo decks with green and blue. So this could fit kind of in that and lets you just like keep tapping for mana or you keep tapping to, I don't know, get cards from your graveyard or things like that. So Kethis combo maybe, something like that. I'm not sure, but definitely you can make some infinite combos with this card, and so it's going to see play somewhere. It's definitely going to see play somewhere. It's a very strong card. The only question is the combo that works with this card fast enough in Historic? Historic is a format where you can win on turn 4 in some cases, so yeah, it has to be at least turn 4, turn 5 win, or else probably won't see play. Alright, next one. Oversold Cemetery. 1 and a black enchantment. So again, enchantment with enchantment synergies. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 or more creatures in your graveyard, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I think this one could see play in the self-mill dredge type decks because, you know, basically you mill yourself, you get a bunch of creatures in your graveyard all the time, and then you can return like the ones that you want back to your hand, like Stitcher Supplier, and there's a few other ones where it's like it's the card you want to play on the battlefield that triggers your other graveyard creatures to return. And so yeah, I could definitely see it being there. It could be some other new deck that's, you know, very sack heavy deck, and so you're killing all your creatures anyway, and then you get them back. So definitely it's very cheap, has a good ability for how cheap it is, and with any sort of like self mill or sacrifice or way to put creatures in your graveyard, this is going to be very good. Alright, next one, Phyrexian Unlife, 2 and a white. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life, and then as long as you have 0 or less life, all damage is dealt as though it had Infect. So it's kind of like 9 lives where you don't lose the game right away, and you get kind of an extra few turns to live. I don't know where this would see play. Could be possibly in a control deck to give you like a little bit extra time. Depending on the opponent's deck, you know, the infect damage might take like 3 or 4 extra hits from creatures to kill you. And you could play this in addition to 9 lives as like even more ways to not lose the game. Yeah, I'm not sure. So it's definitely an interesting card. It has a strong ability. Maybe you can play this in there's like a white control deck, yeah, that does 9 lives and solemnity. This could be like another way to stall the game out. So you can have like 4 9 lives and 2 Phyrexian Unlives. And then that way, basically, you're like surviving a little bit longer against the opponent's decks. Have to see, but it's definitely a strong card. Anything that prevents you from losing the game is potentially a very strong card. Alright, let's go on to the last card. Rhystic Study, another commander all-star, 2 and a blue. Whenever opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay 1. This is probably not as good in Historic as it is in Commander, but still pretty powerful card. Especially against opponents who have a lot of cheap spells like wizards or something like that. They are kind of forced to pay the tax in a lot of cases unless they're going to win that turn, because they don't want to just give you like infinite ways to find removal. So yeah, you're basically either going to slow the opponent down having them pay the tax, or they're going to give you a bunch of cards which you can find an answer from your deck to what they're doing. So I think it's still potentially very good. It's a strong draw outlet. It's kind of like Phyrexian Arena, but it doesn't cost you life, and it would be nice in a control deck, I would say, because your either outcome is good for you. You slow them down, but by them having to always pay the extra tax, or you get a bunch of cards. So win-win either way. All right, yeah, so that's my 10 decks from the Enchanted Tales that I think will make some, you know, nice impact in Historic. All of them have a home where they can fit in. The other Enchanted Tales, I didn't find anything that I thought would spawn new archetypes in particular. I mean, if Fairies becomes a thing, maybe Bitter Blossom will be in Fairies. Maybe you could do something with Forced Fruition and some other deck that besides the Bowmasters, but I don't know why you would want to really. So yeah, I think most of these are just pretty solid cards that have a home already, and so they're definitely going to make some impact in Historic, which is something we didn't see a lot in the last few sets, so that's kind of nice. All right, well, that's it for my top 10 for Historic. We will have the early access streamer event coming up on the 31st, and I'm also working on my 5 new brews, which I will make a video about at some point, either before or after the early access event. And yeah, so stay tuned and look for that. All right, till next time, get out there, have some fun, and see ya.